this gets into some of Minger's work. I think he wrote on
Hmm.
the origins of money. So then we're initially producing commodities that have utility to us. But as we begin to trade with one another as a means of increasing our economic efficiency through the division of labor, certain goods start to develop a marketability premium, which is independent of their utility to us. And then whatever develops the greatest marketability premium is then money. Is that correct? And it maybe then the things you're holding that have the marketability premium is kind of like the storehold of that excess economic energy or whatever term that I don't have.
Sure. So yeah, I agree with everything up to that last one, and then the last one I'll explain a little bit about, just to be careful with that concept. So yeah, you're right. Menger, he, in addition to founding the Austrian school, he's also he didn't invent this idea like you can see in Adam Smith. So Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, 1776. Menger's book is 1871, just for people who have the timeline. But yeah, Menger later wrote, I think it was like in an encyclopedia of economics, the entry on the origin of money, right? So that's why it's not just Austrians, liking him because he's their guy, but he really was given this task in terms of the history of economic thought. So the way he explained it is, he said, first of all, it's people tend to think that if there's some great social innovation that some wise ruler or priest or somebody must have invented it and had the idea. But he said, actually, money is so weird when you think about it that, we're going to, if people were just doing direct exchange or barter, that if somebody said, hey, I know, instead of directly trading things that you want yourself, why don't you sell the things to others in exchange for something that you actually don't want? But don't worry, because everyone else is going to do that too. If we can all agree to do this, then you can go get the things you want, because they'll give you that thing, and you give them the thing that nobody wants. Like these shells. Let's use these shells and we'll call it money. People would think you were nuts. That sounds like the stupidest thing ever, right? Like, why would we do that?
Yeah.
And so, because it sounds like it won't work too. Like, what if I don't trust other people are going to do it? Then I'm going to be the sucker with these shells and no one's going to want them, right? And so, and people in the crypto space actually can be like, yeah, some of these new coins, I know what you're talking about, right? It's kind of a chicken and egg problem, where if we could all agree to do it, it would be great. But if I'm the only one who does it, then it's not going to work well.
Yeah.
So Menger was saying that's probably not how money originated, right? And so we have to explain the emergence of money as like a spontaneous order, like a step-by-step thing that nobody set out to invent it. It just kind of happened naturally, as it were. But clearly it has to do with human action, right? It's not like looking at trees and say nobody invented a tree. Like money clearly is a human creation, but yet he was pointing. So anyway, so the way he described it is, like you said, imagine your original, barter economy. Certain goods would be more marketable, like eggs have a wider market than telescopes. More people. If you go to market with eggs, you're more likely to find somebody who has what you need than if you go to market with a telescope.
Right.
And so that's why if you did happen to have a telescope and you saw someone with eggs who wanted a telescope, even if you were trying to go get leather boots, you would probably make that trade, because the chance of me finding someone with leather boots who wants eggs is higher than finding someone who has leather boots and wants a telescope. So I'm going to unload this telescope for eggs because the eggs are more marketable, or they're more liquid. And then, so you see, the things that were initially more marketable, their marketability gets enhanced because of that second order effect, where people accept it just because they know this is more marketable. They don't want it themselves. It's like there's a famous example in a POW camp in World War II. Cigarettes became the currency. So even non-smokers would give up, if you had an extra ration of ham and you didn't like it, you would sell it for some cigarettes, even if you weren't a smoker,
right? Because
there were enough smokers who really wanted cigarettes that you could get whatever you needed if you had cigarettes. Right. So that was Menger's insight. And that's where money came from. Once one or two commodities were accepted, that process would snowball. And then once a few commodities were just accepted by just about everybody, that's what money is.
Right.
So that my only concern with what you were saying about like the energy in the system or something getting pumped is, again, that it almost sounds like, there's physical things going into the objects. And so I would just, again, caution that everything's ultimately in our minds, and what something is money because of what we're doing with it, and it has value because of what our minds are ascribing to it.
Right. Yes.
And, its value could disappear tomorrow.
It's expectation based, not actual energy going into a battery that you can spend. Yes. No, that's fair criticism there. It's funny you give that example of the POW camp. I grew up playing this massive online multiplayer game called Diablo 2, and it had it's like a live Dungeons and Dragons type game, but it also had trade channels where you'd go and trade these items with other players, and it had its own emergent currency. There was no currency. There was currency in the game, but the supply was so large that it didn't have a lot of value to the items. So these little rings called Stone of Jordan rings became the de facto currency in the game. And just no one set out to do that. The game designer didn't do it. No individual player did. It just happened. So I think it makes all the sense in the world that if you have a market economy, something's just going to become the most marketable good. And that would clearly be preferred by all market actors to satisfy their aims. So.
Yeah, that's great. And I had seen some stuff, I was like 10 years ago, but some economists had really started studying those, what is it, like I forget the letters are, but massive multiplayer online role-playing games or whatever, MMORPG or something. Yeah. And because of the economic implications of it, it was almost like this almost perfect simulated environment where we can try all sorts of stuff, at low cost. And my understanding is, some of the world, I don't know if it was Diablo, but there was something where it was like, because like the way it originally worked was if you went out and killed monsters, like they would have gold coins on them. Yeah. But then some people were just like paying kids in India to play their game for them while they slept or went to work. And then so there was like inflation. Yeah. And so like the stores, like the price of the swords and stuff quoted in gold pieces just kept going up and up and up. And so finally they had to change the settings that, there couldn't be this constant influx of new coins from computer generated monsters. So anyway, there was a lot of neat stuff like that where economists who weren't playing these games were like, this is kind of like a cool laboratory. Let's start studying this stuff.